So what are the resources that can help us in this complicated time? Well, the first thing I want to tell you all, remind you all, is to make sure you've got RU Connected. If you get the app on your phone, if you've got a smartphone, I don't think it's available for Apple phones yet, so you will have to use a computer. But if you've got a Android smartphone, we are fighting very hard. All the universities in South Africa are fighting very hard to try and make all AC.za addresses data free during this time. If we win that battle, it will be huge. But it's a battle being fought against big corporates with with a big profit margin on that. So I am aware that that is a challenge. Data is a massive challenge, but I'm going to make some suggestions about that in a moment as well. So download the RU Connected app, and then download or print out the articles and set articles you want to read, and set yourself a reading schedule. I would suggest, if you're still on campus, use your EduRoam while you're here to download as many articles as you can now, so that when you are at home, you're not using up your data there. Or make a plan and go online and download a whole lot if you can get into an internet cafe or some such, so that you can continue working when you're offline, so that you, as far as possible, are not reading stuff while you're online. And then just a reminder, and it's something I keep saying to my own students: for every reading, there must be a writing. This is a perfect time to do lots and lots of reading. I'll talk in a moment about how you choose what to read, but just the thing I always say is, for every reading, there must be a writing. We can get very busy reading and reading and reading, and we're not developing our writing muscles. And writing is indeed a practice that you have to keep practicing to get good at. So try and set yourself a schedule. Not only write a list of all the things you want to read and allocate them different days, but also make sure that every time you finish a reading, you do a piece of writing for it. I'm hoping that this little video is going to show on how to keep a reading journal, a video that Sharon Clarence made, and hopefully it will now play. Let's see.
Welcome to this EPE resource on reading journals and how to use one to develop and express a researcher voice in relation to other research you need to read and include in your thesis or papers. Reading is one aspect of postgraduate study that all students, especially early on, find a significant challenge. For starters, how do you know where to start reading when there is so much reading to do? When you have selected what to read, how do you know when to stop reading? How much is enough? Is there such a thing as too much? These questions will be addressed in the supplementary materials underneath this video. But in this video, we are going to look at the latter two questions on this screen: how to keep track of what you are reading, and how to relate that reading to your own research, so that you begin to read and write your way into a deeper understanding of your research field. To keep track of your reading and systematically connect the papers, chapters, and so on that you are reading to your own study, we suggest you learn to keep a reading journal. A reading journal is a personal academic research journal in which you write to yourself about the arguments that other researchers have made about the topic you are researching, or some aspect of it, the methodology or theoretical tools they have used, the findings they have made and what they may mean, the way in which they make their arguments, and anything that may have been left out or overlooked. Further, in addition to summarizing the contribution of the reading to the field in which you and they are working, reading journals offer you a space to speak back to these researchers. You need to go further in your own writing than summarizing other writers' words and ideas. You need to relate what they have written about to your own research project. In your reading journal, then, you need to write about what is interesting, useful, and noteworthy about what you have read, and how it may help you to understand an aspect of your own research better, as well as how it connects to other reading and thinking you are doing. You can then translate this into your more formal writing when you get there. There are a few basics that need to be in place before you get started with your reading and writing. If you're old school, like me, you will need a paper journal. I prefer journals that have good paper stock and are attractive to look at and pleasing to write in, that make me feel scholarly. You will also obviously need pens or pencils. If you're using pen, blue, black, and green are, in my opinion, the easiest colors to read, and you should always avoid red. Whether you are old school or new school, and if you're new school, you'll be typing and saving all of your documents on your PC, laptop, or desktop, you will need a relatively quiet place to read and time to focus. One reading journal entry, including time to read one journal article or book chapter, can take an hour or more, depending on how fast you read and write. The first few may feel difficult and slow, but it does get easier as you become more familiar with reading and writing in this format. To begin, you need to read a chapter or paper on your reading list. For a reading journal entry focused on developing your voice and your thinking, you need to put pens, pencils, and highlighters aside and just read. This can be hard to do at first, as many of you may have learned to annotate your reading as you go through it, underlining keywords and scribbling questions in the margins. The disadvantage of reading in this way is that often when you get to the end of the paper, you can only see the author's words, and it becomes difficult to summarize the main point or argument of the paper in your own words. At postgraduate level, we have to be able to talk about other researchers' work in our own words and make our own research the central thread tying all of the other reading together. Therefore, we have to know what we think about it. When you have finished reading, either on your blank paper or electronic page, you're going to start your entry by writing or typing out the full bibliographic reference. Then you start by summarizing, without copying from the text, what the main argument or point of what you have read is, how the author or authors have made that point, and what the paper says that is useful, interesting, or noteworthy in relation to your research. You can then extend this summary to write about what you like about the reading, how it has helped your thinking, or what you think the reading overlooks, and perhaps even note points that you're struggling to understand. Finally, after you've done all of this, you can go back to the text and copy out or note the page references for useful quotations you might want to consider including in your own writing later on. If you do copy quotes, always make note of page numbers. I'd like to close by offering you a challenge to take up today. If you're new to reading journals, I'd like you to try and make your first entry. If you've already started keeping something like a reading journal, make a new entry today using the guidance offered here. You can use either the old school or new school ways of doing this. If you don't have a paper journal yet, just use a blank piece of paper you can paste into one later on. See how long this takes you, probably at least an hour altogether, and then see where and how you can make time for reading and writing at least 3 to 4 times a week, if not more. This is a challenge if you are studying part-time, but reading is a central activity throughout any postgraduate degree, and you need to work on making time for it, and for the thinking and writing that go along with it.
Great. Thank you for that resource, Sharon. I'll speak to you a bit more about these resources and where you can find them later. But just to reiterate, this idea that for every reading there must be a writing, it's a process whereby you can ask yourself, well, what does that reading mean to me? What does it mean to my study? What does it mean to my interests? And I think if we look at sort of really prolific academic thinkers, that's what they're constantly doing. They approach everything they read with the question of, what does it mean for me? How can I use this? Do I agree with this? Don't I agree with this? So a reading journal, I think, is a hugely useful idea. And if you set yourself a really audacious goal, we don't know how long this time away is going to be, but maybe set yourself a 2-week sort of block of goals of what you want to do, how many readings you want to do a day, and have a goal that for every time you finish a reading, an article or a chapter, you will put an entry into your book. I think those kind of goals will really make this a very fruitful time for all of you. Of course, another key resource is our library, and we really do have a truly fantastic library, and we need to make the most of it. But that means you need to have off-campus access. If you don't know how to get off-campus access, email or phone the library and ask for help, because all of you should be able to access everything except for the books on the actual shelves from wherever you are. And really, Rhodes University spends a fortune getting access to various databases. Even things like Google Scholar. I think oftentimes people don't realize that if you're now sitting in Maritzburg or Mpumalanga or whatever, and you go onto Google Scholar, just somewhere like anyone else does, you will not get access to many things. If you go through the library to Google Scholar, through the ru.ac.za, click on the library, then click on Google Scholar, and then fill in your details for off-campus access, you will find that on that same Google Scholar search, a heck of a lot more is now available in full text PDF that is not available to the ordinary person that just goes straight onto Google Scholar. So you need to go onto Google Scholar through the library website. And let's click on that second one, which is on the university library website now. If I click on access my subject guide, then you will see a page like this comes up, and you'll see there's 4 different types of guides: course guides, general purpose guides, subject guides, and topic guides. And each of these have got a wealth of materials that can often be an entry point into reading. And I'm thinking particularly here of the honors students who may be listening, because at honors level, you're used to things, or you can expect things to be much more structured. And your lecturer tells you your core readings, and it's very clear what you should be reading at a given moment. And now for some of you, you may find, well, I don't know what I'm meant to be reading. And I'd like to suggest to you that you follow the lead of Newton and Shakespeare and follow your passion. Read what interests you. Try and read beyond what's on the syllabus, so that you really are broadening your mind and using this time and space to make the most of your brain. So let's have a quick look. If I click on the subject guide, you'll see there's a whole list, and each of those guides you can click on, and it'll tell you ideas of some of the core texts, some of the databases that might be particularly useful, and so on. Alternatively, the general purpose guide, there you can see there's, again, you click on any of these headings and it will just give you a heck of a lot more information and some interesting things, including things like Mendeley, RefWorks, Zotero. So those are all citation software. So that's another idea. You could use this time as an opportunity to learn software useful for your postgraduate journey, such as citation software or data analysis software, like endeavour for qualitative analysis, or SPSS or R for more quantitative analysis. Use this time to learn some of those skills. And I often find it gives you a good break, so that you spend an hour doing the sort of hectic theoretical reading, then you enter something in your reading journal, then you have a cup of tea, and then you watch 2 YouTube videos on using Mendeley, then you mess around with Mendeley for 25 minutes, and then you go back to another reading, so that you structure a day in a way that mixes things up. So our library is a really fantastic resource, and I urge you to spend a bit of time on that website, and phone or email the librarians if you get caught on anything, or get caught up and you can't manage something. This is a website, Postgrad Environments. You can see there's the URL, postgradenvironments.com. Another useful website. It had that little video that I just showed of Sharon talking about the reading journal. That comes from this website. You can subscribe on the right-hand side there, and you'll find there's a whole lot of videos and materials that you can click on. You can click on that All Resources button at the top right there, and you'll see every video and so on that's available on that site, and more gets added all the time. Or you can scroll down and click on that Offline Use, which is where you can download any of the materials, so that if you happen to be in a place that's got free Wi-Fi, you can download materials to view them later when you are not in a space of free Wi-Fi. At the moment, if you open the library webpage, this is what you will see. And you'll see over here that they are piloting something which they've extended at the moment. They've got permission to extend it to the 15th of June. And this is particularly for the natural scientists. It's got some stuff for humanities and social sciences, but mainly for the natural scientists. And that is a site called Jove. So if you click on that, Jove, it'll take you to this page. And then if you click on that URL, it'll take you to that off-campus login, which you would need to do if you want to go into Google Scholar off-campus or Jove off-campus or any of the databases off-campus, and it'll ask you for your surname and the barcode or your student number and your PIN if you have a PIN. And if you forget your PIN, there is a button at the end. So you'll fill in your details, and that's what Jove looks like. So those are the topics covered by Jove. And pretty much like YouTube, I guess, but really high quality videos on all of these things. So I just clicked on one of them. I clicked on developmental psychology, and these are just the top 2 videos, but there's about 40 different videos. So again, opportunity to broaden your brain, to, just dip into different aspects of your field. Don't feel constrained. I'm sure many of you, your lecturers are in touch with you. They are telling you what you need to be reading, and of course you should prioritize that. But I also think it's a perfect opportunity to explore throughout your field. So just make the most of the wonderful era that we're in. Google is your friend. Well, some of it. It's easy to go down a rabbit hole with Google. YouTube is your friend. And again, some of it. It's amazing. There's a YouTube video on almost anything. I fixed my washing machine, and believe you me, I am not an electrician. I fixed my washing machine with a YouTube video the other day. There's YouTube videos and guest lectures on almost every topic. So have a look. What theorist are you using? What concept are you using? Who's the big name in your field? Is there a video, a lecture of theirs? Wikipedia is definitely your friend. I reckon Wikipedia is one of the best friends of any postgraduate scholar. I know we always tell people you shouldn't reference Wikipedia, and that's because it hasn't gone through the double-blind peer review process of a journal article, but it is actually has been found to be as good, if not better, in terms of its credibility and validity than most encyclopedias. And it's a really great starting point if you're reading in a new area. I often find that if I just look at the Wikipedia entry for a concept or a theory, before I go and read the actual theorists, it helps me a lot. Loads of podcasts and online learning spaces. There's podcasts for almost every single field. Can you use the chat to share some ideas? Do any of you use online learning courses, podcasts, online materials? If you do, can you share some of them now? That would be a good idea. We can share some ideas. Michelle has said that Castbox is a really great site for different podcasts. So you can find a whole lot of podcasts on Castbox. Keep those ideas coming. Social media is not your friend. Now, a lot of us are social media junkies, and it gives us connection in a time of separation. So I think social media is going to be really important in these times. But I think it's important to limit when we're on social media and to actually turn it off when you're busy with a reading or busy watching a YouTube that's specifically for your work. Turn off your social media because it can just be a distraction. So basically, bottom line, what I'm suggesting is that we should be getting an education and not a qualification. And that's true whether we were face-to-face or whether we are distant. But sometimes we're so busy just figuring out what's the next hurdle I need to jump over to get to the graduation stage that we forget that what we really want is to educate our minds and to enjoy the space of thinking at this incredible level. So use this time wisely. Read beyond the syllabus.